Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/new music industry. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
You're listening to the New Music Industry with David Andrew Weeb.
I know that I've been kind of quiet throughout July. As usual, this is not due to a lack of content to share with you, but rather a mix of burnout, increasing workload, vacation time, and planning for my future. My 1-week trip to Ontario, by the way, was entirely too brief, but much needed and enjoyable. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my plans. Though I can't share any specifics just yet, I am looking to relocate in October. Hard to believe, but I've been in Calgary, Alberta for nearly 23 years. During that time, I made plenty of trips to Red Deer, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Camrose, Barrhead, various parts of British Columbia, which is Alberta's neighboring province to the west, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Spokane, Washington, Portland, Oregon, Hawaii, Mexico, Japan, California, and more. In retrospect, I can see that I've never been one to sit still. I've often felt it important to have a home base of sorts, but that was always with the idea of being able to move freely between different locations, whether it was for the purpose of traveling, touring, or otherwise. That desire has only grown over time, so as I look to the future, I plan to incorporate more adventure into my life. In any case, I thought I would share a quick update with you before getting into today's interview. If you've ever wondered whether there's a release strategy that can help you generate amazing results, you're going to love this episode. Let's get into it. Today I'm chatting with Outerloop's Paul Phelps. How are you today, Paul?
Doing great, David. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So I'm sure everyone's curious, what is it that you do at Outerloop?
So it's a real interesting position. What I'm a systems analyst by profession, my 9 to 5, as it were. And so what I've always done is develop systems. And what I found, and I've been a failed music business manager myself, and worked in the music industry for a number of years with Sting, Paul Simon, just a who's who of those types of artists back in the late 90s and early aughts. And I've always been a fan of the music industry and how it was evolving. So I always kept my toes in. So I met a gentleman by the name of Mike Mowry, who's been extremely successful in developing artists and turning them into theater and large theater packing artists around the world, and taking them from the garage right to that. And so I found what he did fascinating. And when we happened to meet at a South by Southwest, we just hit it off. And so from that relationship, what I do for him is I take all the things that he and his team at Outerloop Management and Outerloop Records do, and I create systems out of it. And then I bring those systems back to those teams so that way they don't feel like they have to recreate the wheel with every new client, with every new album release cycle, every new tour, and so on and so forth. And when those systems work, then I take them to our platform that we call Outerloop Coaching, which is when we just make that available to everybody. And that's one of those things that Mike and I bonded on, was just the idea that, information, just like music, is not a zero-sum product. It's one of those things that you give away, and the world becomes a better place, and you don't lose anything, And that's one of the things that we love about both information and with music. You can share it till you drop, and you are no less. And it's not like money. It's not like furniture. It's not like anything else that I could ever think of, besides maybe love. So that was what we bonded on, and that's what I do. And as that relationship has evolved, what I've done is I will A/B test and tweak the systems and that sort of thing, and try to find ways to make it faster, better for the team. And when it works, we bring it back and teach it. When it doesn't work, it ends up on the cutting room floor. And and so that's my position at Outerloop. It's probably fairly unique in the industry, but it works out for everybody. It's a win-win-win, as they say.
I'm curious what the coaching looks like. What does that look like?
Well, in the beginning, there was an intention to make it a way to teach the music business. However, the way that things have evolved is that I'm a huge fan of musicians being musicians.
Yes.
I've always felt like if you can allow musicians to focus on being great at what it is that they are already great at doing, then that's when they're going to be at their best. And when they're distracted by all the things that they need to learn in order to be successful in today's modern industry, and it's vital. It is absolutely vital that you need to know a ton about the music business, no matter how great a singer, guitarist, drummer, etc. you are. But saying that, if there's ways that I can develop, if I can make these systems as easy as possible so that you don't actually have to learn much, all you got to do is do it, then that's when I think it's successful. So the way I describe it is it's like tablature for the music business. So rather than trying to, learn the song, you hear it on the radio once and now you need to learn all these chords and I need to know how to do this. Instead, you just play the right notes at the right time and you're going to be pretty darn close. And then as creative people, what I really hope will happen is that they'll take some of what it is that we do as systems and be able to do the tablature, but then as creative people go, let me try this because I think I might be able to do this a little different and it might work. And then it makes it better. Sometimes it'll make it worse, but if it makes it better, call me. You know what I mean? So that's the idea with what it is that we're trying to do at Outerloop Coaching. Like I said, it's evolved over time, but the Release It Right is our sort of flagship program. That is our template for what it is that we hope to develop going forward, and certainly the what it is that I'm most proud of that we do.
Recently did a webinar. It was Digital Marketing Essentials for Musicians. It was about an hour long, and at least from my standpoint, it was about as easy as I could make it for people without, compromising on the need for really just the basics like a website and social media platforms. And still at the end of it, there were musicians going, this is way too much, or like, how do you even do it all?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I find, I'm like you, I'm sure, I'm just steeped in SEO and, different ways to tag YouTube in order to get a better chance of showing up on searches and all that sort of stuff, and it's just a ton of work.
Yeah.
And my big I was a musician for a time, and I was the manager of the band while a musician. We toured the country a ton of times, and and had an independent release that did fairly well, all that sort of stuff. But for me, I had a real hard time relating to not only the bands that we toured with, but even the members of my band, because for me, I related mostly to the people in the audience, and I still do. And so if I can find a way to make it easier for fans like me to discover really, really great music, my belief is the best way to do that in at least this time in the 21st century. The best way to do that is to make it as easy as possible for the musicians themselves to make themselves known. It's one of those things where, my biggest pet peeve is I'll look at, speaking of digital marketing, like a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed for a band that I love. And here comes the album release, and, here's a handful of posts and, hey, go out and buy our album. And then after the album's released, then you get a post about a tour coming up, and then you don't hear about them for a year and a half until they expect everybody to get excited again that, oh no, we got another album release. It's like, well, where the hell you been? And as a fan, I find it frustrating that like YouTube is like this opportunity in my mind for like MTV for every single band that I love. And if every band treated their YouTube channel like a TV channel for their band and thought about it like a fan, in my mind, it would be documentaries, videos, back scene stuff, conversations, just everything you see on like that, that sort of like late 90s MTV when they actually did play music or music had something to do with what they were doing. That's what made that channel really effective and really great, but most of that music sucked. So if it were a channel for a band that I love, then yeah, I would absolutely want to hear and see that kind of content all the time. But coming up with that stuff is hard, and it's a distraction from just, sitting in the basement and playing paradiddles until you're better,
It's so true. Many bands can't keep up the traction they've built up by, furthering the momentum with additional social media posts or news releases or whatever it is. And like you say, for some bands, I'm sure it's just kind of a boring task or one more thing they have to do in their day. And they haven't fully integrated with the digital system that exists. But I'm a big fan of systems. I don't know if that's something you know about me. I encourage artists to create systems for themselves in my books as well. I'm not sure how much artists like the idea of systems, but maybe we can turn that around a bit in this episode.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that because, there's nothing more left brain than a system.
Yes.
And man, when you're talking to a bunch of right brainers, they go, I don't want it. But it's almost like it's a tool, right? And if the tool is easy to use and it's simple and it's easy to understand, then you don't look at it as a system. You just look at it as like a cool tool. When your phone is complicated, you don't make phone calls. But when you press two buttons and you got mom on the other end of the line, well, yeah, depending on your relationship with mom, you're calling her all the time.
That was certainly the case. Like a few years ago, I went into network marketing. I guess that was 2012 now. And I didn't stay in that business. But one of the things I found so convenient about this smartphone thing was you could call anyone with a tap of a button. It was so much easier than just dialing. Not like anybody remembers dialing, but
totally. Yeah, and so that was kind of like, so just sort of to give you a little bit of background on I was about to go on a flight from here in Ireland, where I live currently, back to the U.S. And I was talking to Mike, and we were talking about his successful releases that his record label and his management company had worked with and been a part of, whether it be with a label, another independent label for artists that they represented, or the label themselves. And I said, hey, you do me a favor and just send over like everything you got, like every napkin, every note, everything that you've got on, say, the top 4 or 5 releases that you can think of over the last 2 or 3 years. And so he sent that over, and I'm sure kind of where this goes as a fan of systems. Like I could see the patterns, like just screaming out, like the timing of when things were done, the when the single would come out with a visualizer versus when it came out with a video versus and then all that sort of stuff was all set fairly regimented. But when I would talk to Mike, I'd be like, well, do you realize that there's a process here that you fall into regularly with each of these releases? And he's like, no, it's just like every time we start with a blank slate and then we start brainstorming how things are going to go. And certainly we remember how things have gone in the past, but we are starting from scratch with every new release. So what I did was I documented the commonalities and made a system for a release rollout. And so Outerloop started using it. We put this out and called it Release It Right. Did really, really well and got a lot of great feedback with people going, I'm getting 10 times the streams I got on the last release. getting signed to labels that they were dream destinations based on getting those great first week sales that put them on Billboard, and all those sorts of things were happening for them, and we're getting really, really great responses. And I was just blown away. Did not expect that at all, and certainly hope for people to be able to use it and for it be effective for them. But I'm sure you see it firsthand. There's so many people who will buy any type of program and then they just let it sit over there and they don't do it. And so that was really what I was expecting. But it turns out that just about everybody who was doing it was just kicking butt with it. And especially the Outerloop team. The Outerloop team was using it. It was shaving weeks off of the time that they would spend planning their releases.
Right.
It made everybody on their team more accountable as to, hey, did you do what you're supposed to do to prepare for this coming week? Oh no, but let's get on it. That sort of thing was happening that hadn't happened before. Before it would be like, hey, this week, can we put out this and that? And somebody go, oh no, I'm not ready. Can we do it next week? Okay. Is that sort of style, And so over the course of a little over a year, just the Outerloop team was just kicking butt with it and having some really great releases and great successes with it. And so then what happened was Mike's got a client called Ice 9 Kills. If your listener is a fan of the metalcore scene, they might have been familiar with Ice 9 Kills, but they're far from a household name. And they were one of those bands that you would see opening up for bands that you love and you might know them. You might have a friend who's bought the album or listens to them regularly or wears a t-shirt, but not even within that scene, not the top tier. They were a developing artist. And Mike and the team took Release It Right to Spencer and the rest of the band and the record label, Restless Records, and they all decided that what they were going to do, because they had a much grander vision than what Release It Right was that they were going to just expand on it. They were going to make it more weeks of a rollout. They were going to do videos for everything instead of, well, this will be a visualizer and this will be just a premiere single and things like that we'd had before. And they just went full on with social media. Obviously, a very good looking singer. They had a very, very visual presentation to and theme to this album called The Silver Scream. And so they wanted heavy on Instagram, heavy on YouTube, and just everything really, really visual, lots of pictures, lots of graphics. And when about 2 weeks before the album release, Mike sent me a text, and I got to find it because it was so great. He goes, I think this release is going to really, really blow the doors off people. It's something along those lines. Like, I think we got a big one here. I don't know how big. And, I was like, so what do you think? You think it might make top 100 in Billboard, top 50 maybe? He's like, I don't know. It's too soon to say, but I don't know. The momentum feels really, really good. And they released the album, debuted at 27 on Billboard, just killed it with streams, killed it with pre-sales, just absolutely crushed everybody's expectations by a far, just so much. And so immediately I said to Mike, get me in touch with the record label and save all of your notes and let's document this thing. Yep. And so from the month of late October, the album came out in mid-October, from late October, early November up through February, March, I painstakingly went through everything that went through this rollout, documented everything, and just made it so that anybody who wants to release their EP or full length in the same kind of way can do so. And so that was the inspiration, and that's what we ended up developing.
That's amazing. And we're going to delve deeper into that for sure. One thing, just by way of comment, the way you talked about creating these systems, which I'm sure added value to Outerloop, you can already tell just from what you've already shared that it made a difference. And it is so different than another leadership style out there, which is kind of like, what's next? Which is a great question to ask, but it totally drives you nuts when you're like a musician or you're in a band and the leader goes, what's next? And you're like, well, we have to digitally distribute the album, so we're going to go submit it to CD Baby. Great, go do that. He comes back, what's next? He comes back again, what's next? Right? Just over and over and over again, because the process hasn't been thought through and you don't have a system where the what's next guy can kind of calm down if you have those systems in place.
Yeah, and it's funny because, when I have in there's 4 main workbooks in the Release It Right, Ice Nine Kills edition. And the first one has got a calendar where it makes it real simple to set what your release date is for your EP or full length. And then from out of that, you can you can look back, 1 week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before to see all the things that you need to do in order to get ready for that release. But it goes from left to right. It doesn't go from, it goes from right to left. It doesn't go from left to right because you need to start at the end to know where you're going. Yes. And I couldn't find a better way to do it. Too often when someone goes, okay, we're going to release our EP or our full length, let's say on November 10th, assuming that's a Friday, right? And then everybody goes, okay, all right, so what are we going to do this week to get ready? And, maybe, we're going to shoot a music video. And, well, that takes a little too long to edit. And we're pushing that back. And then we need to get our ISRC, and that takes too long. And we need to schedule our release party, and the venue's not ready, not available. All those things happen. And before you know it, your release date you're not ready for your own release date. So knowing what it is that you need to prepare for and knowing all the things that are ahead before you even start, and everything, not just the destination, but the road and all the exit signs along that road, knowing what all those are, it's just absolutely critical.
Well, let's get into that then. What exactly can you share with us? What steps were taken to get this release out there in the way that you were able to?
Yeah, so the first thing is, and I touched on this earlier, but it really is, in my opinion, the big key is the video-centric rollout of this release. YouTube was just such a vital part of this entire rollout. I can't encourage people enough in 2019, 2020, when you're listening to this, to really make the effort to shoot music videos or prepare music videos for every one of your singles. YouTube has become, I can see it just, not to date myself too much, but I'm the parent of a teenager, and I learned so much about the way that people are thinking about music now by talking to him and his friends who have he knows what I do, but his friends have no clue. And what it is that I think is really interesting is they use YouTube the way that those of us who are older and probably even people in their 20s use Netflix or use just traditional television. Mm-hmm. It is the way that they're gobbling content, and they're doing it by subscribing to channels and just going back to those channels and then using liking videos, commenting, so on and so forth, but then also letting the algorithms tell them what other videos they need to watch. But they're starting with YouTube. They're looking for stuff on YouTube. They're trusting the suggestions that YouTube comes up with, and it's just they're experiencing their music. I mean, obviously, Spotify is king for how audio or songs are being consumed, but YouTube is right up there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it grows at just so much faster rate than most any of the other platforms. And we found that, like, as each video was released and people were watching it, they were anticipating the next one. The videos are really, really good. A lot of energy was put into them. There's a lot of talent involved in the videos. The videos themselves thematically fit in with the album and the videos that follow. So everybody's anticipating the next one. We never saw a drop off in the number of views for videos. We actually saw those view rates, and certainly the speed in which people rush to the next video. We saw that escalate. And so that was a really interesting thing. I think in conjunction with that, the band released 4 singles, 3 of them prior to album release, and the 4th one, I believe, was, hold on, I can check right here. The 4th one was released just like 1 week before the album was released. So it really, captured the momentum and went towards getting those pre-orders in and those last minute people, but more than anything, just really got people who were still on the fence to buy that first week. And as we all know, those purchases count so much more than the streams when trying to get those SoundScan numbers up for week 1. And so yeah, that was it. Whether 4 singles might be too many for some bands, you really have to have a really good catalog and a really deep number of great songs on a full length. If you believe in 3 or 4 of your songs, you just gotta you front load it. Yeah.
So it all begins with the music videos for each single, as well as the single release, which sounds like something every band could do, assuming they planned well and maybe had a bit of a budget, or at least could call in some favors for beer and pizza to make it happen.
Yeah, and I say this all the time to those of us who are the students, or those who have got into Release It Right and are on our Facebook group, that if you've got volunteers and you've got people who will help out to shoot a music video in a single day, you know what? Bring extra clothes and shoot 2, shoot 3, shoot 4 videos in one day. There's, it's not that difficult once the camera's set up and all that sort of thing, to throw a whole new backdrop, take a shower if necessary, come back and do it again, especially if you're not doing anything too elaborate. So yeah, there's no reason that you can't shoot that music video where you're standing in front of a backdrop, or you're out in a field or whatever it is, and do that in the same area that you shoot more, say, a story-based video. There's no reason you can't do that all in one fell swoop.
Right. Batch process. That's a good productivity tip right there.
Yeah. Oh, but it's sort of that same idea about, I love that term, by the way, batch process. That's so good. There's a similar idea with the idea the idea of batch processing when thinking about each single as it comes out before the actual release of the album or EP. And that is that each one of those singles has its own release rollout. And it's only a week or 2, but you got to generate all of this is about generating excitement. And so you need to generate excitement for the release of each of those singles. So you need those teasers, you need graphics saying it's coming, and all those sorts of things to try to generate that anticipation and excitement for the single. And it's almost like a sales technique where you try to get the buyer to say yes. If they say yes to single 1 and yes to single 2 and yes to single 3, yes to single 4, they ain't going to say no to the full length. And that is, I believe, like another part of that whole release rollout process that a lot of bands miss out on. They think, oh, well, we'll put out the video on Friday. Well, guess what? Like, you put it out. If people, nobody's waiting for it. You have to build that so that they are waiting for it, so that they get into that exercise of going to your YouTube channel or hitting that bell instead of just subscribing, because there's greatness coming and they know it's coming. It's just now they're excited for it and they don't want to miss it. And that's really, really critical. And that goes also for the social media and that sort of thing. You got to get people to really look out for your posts and look out for your group posts and that sort of thing that you're doing on Facebook. The algorithms make it so hard for bands to get that stuff seen.
Yes.
So you have to find ways to get the audience excited to see it, so they'll go out of their way to make sure that they make the adjustments they need to do so that they don't miss it, even if it means going to your page, because they know something's coming. They may not know exactly when, but they're excited for it.
Yeah, it sounds like something you could totally couple with Jeff Walker launch methodology, which is essentially 3 videos. The first video saying, here's what we're thinking of releasing, kind of ambiguous. Then the second video is, okay, thanks for your feedback. We made these adjustments. And then third video is, hey, it's released. Here it is. Go and check it out. Can't tell you why it works. It just does. I mean, we've used it for a crowdfunding campaign and it works wonders.
That product launch formula, I went to his conference in Arizona a few months ago, and there's some things that I love about it and some things I really despise.
I agree.
One of the
I
things
totally agree.
One of the things that I really dig is thinking about product launch. Let me put this out there, like, if you don't mind. Like, I met a number of musicians at that conference and hung out with a lot of them because everybody's looking for another way to find a way to kind of launch what they do. And the product launch formula is incredibly expensive. It is not worth it for musicians, in my opinion. But I will say that I think some of those techniques, that 3 video technique, the idea of generating interest and answering that question why, all those sort of things are absolutely vital to crowdfunding campaigns, but also really great for those bursts of activity that you do to generate a little bit of revenue between tours, between album cycles, that sort of thing, whether it be having a bundle of shirts or a bundle of merchandise in general that you want to get out there and get sold, using your email list really, really effectively. I always, I feel like that PLC and product launch formula is pretty interesting for that sort of thing. And in fact, it's one of the things that we've been testing over at Outerloop with a couple of the developing artists.
Very interesting. Yeah, I guess if you want access to it, you can always go and get yourself the book. That's, only about $12. At the same time, I've read it and it is very wordy and convoluted. It should be a lot simpler than it is. Maybe he's just doing that on purpose. He over explains things and he even admits it and then says, but I'm doing that to help you. And it's like, it's not actually helping me. I just need a diagram showing me how it all works.
Well, maybe offline I'll give you some of the things that I really didn't like about the PLF thing, but I do that offline. Yeah, but it sort of goes back to that thing of like how much do you want to learn and how much do you want to do,
right.
And
yeah,
I used to have that Donald Passman Business of Music book, and I read that thing front to back more than once. I felt like I was dumber at the end than I was when I started. and I was genuinely like full bore interested in that material. So, I think that, with all of this stuff, I really, really encourage musicians to simplify as much of this as they can, but do so as an exercise in order to inspire themselves to do it, because I find that confusion and having too many ideas all at the same time you end up like just frozen. And that's something that, again, as a fan who really wants musicians to be great at getting their music to me so that I'll get those chills, that I get every once in a great while when I hear a great song. That's what I'm after as a fan. And anything that gets in the way, I hate it. And that might even include just too much information, I'll see that all the time with like, oh, well, you got to be on Instagram and you got to be on Facebook and you got to be on Twitter and you got to be on this place. And don't forget Slack or not Slack, Snapchat. And don't forget, you know what? Be on like 2 platforms.
Yes.
Maybe 3, and just be great at those.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, you have to start off with a focus, and you may want to register every social media profile you can up front in case you ever need it. However, when you're starting off, you should focus on 1 or 2 platforms and just hammer those before getting others dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things that musicians hate. I know they hate spreadsheets too, and
yes.
I hate to say it, but I got a big old spreadsheet, and you can print that sucker out and tape it to a band wall, and I promise it looks horrific. I know it causes people's skin to crawl, but you know what? Take your pen to it, check off things as you do it, and hold the other guys in the band accountable to the things that they say that they're going to do or that they've taken responsibility for doing, and getting other fans and family members to help out as well, and hold everybody accountable and make sure that everybody's on task and that your rollout is really going out well. And when, it's so much easier when you can see it, it's up there and it's real. It's so hard when doing it like with a mobile app or something, but someday.
Yeah, I'm a total geek when it comes to spreadsheets too, so I do encourage their use. Are there any other steps or nuances that make this strategy work?
Well, I think that it's those micro releases within the big release schedule, I think is really key. One of the things that I did for RIR Inc., which is shorthand for Release It Right, the Silver Scream Edition, is I went through every single one of the Facebook and Instagram posts that the band did. And so that way I could document, like, was it a graphic? Was it a photo? Is it a video or a teaser video? And was there a link? Is it a link asking people to try a contest, or was it a link to pre-order, or was it a link to pre-order from another retailer besides within the ecosystem that is just like a partner retailer, Newberry Comics and folks like that, documenting each and every one of those. And then also taking a look at, as of like 3 or 4 months after the posts were done, how many views, how many likes, how many shares, how many comments did all of these posts have? So that way, when a band is just too busy and, look, I'm sorry, we can't do another Instagram post. We can't do, 6 a week or 12 that week and 8 this other week. Well, you can take a look at the view counts, the share counts, and all that sort of thing, and prioritize what it is that you think you need to do so you can at least come close to releasing the album or full length the right way.
I so love that. Yeah, and I'm looking at the website right now, learning a little bit about the Release It Right. So I can kind of get a sense of what that's like. So where should people go to learn more about all this?
Well, the best is outerloopcoaching.com. Thanks for letting me mention that. Mike wrote an ebook. It's a music management primer that's free to download. I also have a pre-recording checklist that's absolutely free. I love getting this out to people. We actually have a bunch of recording studios and producers who use this pre-recording checklist to give to their clients before they come into the studio so that they're prepared before they go in. Because, your release rollout, you don't think about it after you've already recorded. You got to be thinking about it before you even go in the studio, because it's just a really awesome time to be developing those assets that you can do later on and put out as part of your release rollout to get people excited. And Release It Right's available now, but I'm still I'm not sure when. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, give or take, I'm hoping to have Release It Right, the Silver Scream edition, available. It's just going to depend on a few other factors, but it's almost ready to go. But I'll have that available soon as well. But really, I just want people to get the ebook and to get that pre-recording checklist. And really, I just want bands, if nothing else, because you know how it is. Like, very few people are going to say, you know what, I need to invest in my band by doing this. When bands want to invest, they invest in a new muffler, they invest in a new amplifier, they invest in dinner. That's what they do. And I totally respect that. So, all I really want to do is I just want people to know that they need to think about this the right way and think about their rollout and know as much as possible so that they don't have to think. If you know it, you can stop thinking. And that's really ultimately my goal, so that really awesome bands, I won't miss them. That's what I don't want. I don't want to miss really awesome bands. So if you're an awesome band, then please get great at making sure the world knows that you exist.
Fantastic. That's great advice, Paul. Well, thanks so much for your time and generosity. Is there anything else I should have asked?
No, that I think that's, but you know how it is, David, like, I'm sure you and I could go on and on about this sort of stuff for hours on end. And I know I've been thinking about this for so long, and I still you can hear my voice. I get really excited about it. So, I gotta pull back, but, outerloopcoaching.com. I got the blog and videos and all that sort of thing, just to kind of trying to get great information out to people as much as possible. 'Cause it's if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I say this to my wife, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm really proud of my kid and I'm proud of my family, and but you know what, I would really hope that this program, this Release It Right program, might be the one that people will go, yeah, there was this guy and he really made it better for me, or he made it better for all the bands that I love. That would be really, really cool, So that's I'm super proud of this, and that's part of the reason that I'm excited to try to let as many people know about it as I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. You're great. I really appreciate your time.
And I'm back to wrap up today's episode. You may have heard Paul mention a free pre-recording checklist in this episode. If you're interested in grabbing your own, you can go to musicentrepreneur.hq.com/outerloop. This offer comes with Mike Mowry's Music Management Primer as well. So again, go to musicentrepreneur.hq.com/outerloop to claim these free offers. Thanks for listening, and keep on rocking. Thank you for listening. Music in this episode was brought to you by Brian Young. Wherever you're listening to this right now, please consider leaving a 5-star review and comment to help us get the word out about the podcast.